Hello students, this is the third part of the story Love Across the Salt Desert. This is the third and last part of the story Love Across the Salt Desert. So Najab, the main character in the story, Najab, the Indian boy, he has reached Fatima's house in Pakistan and now he is planning to bring her back to India. Fatima's father Kale Shah is not very pleased with Najab because he hasn't brought any tendu leaves. And so now Najab gets ready to bring Fatima to India. The next 2 days, Kale Shah was busy buying clothes and arranging to get Allah Rakha grazed a few miles away by a cowherd. So Kale Shah was told by Najab that he would buy the clothes. Najab would buy the clothes from him and in return he would pay in gold. So Kale Shah is busy buying clothes and Allah Rakha, the camel, is taken far away, a few miles away by a cowherd. A cowherd takes care of cattle. Otherwise, the presence of a strange camel would let loose a babble of tongues. So if a strange camel is seen in the village near somebody's house, then people would start talking. Babbling means talking loosely. Najab slept in the cattle shed in the evening and slipped into Fatima's room late at night. So then when he went to her room, she told him about what her parents had planned for her. They want me to marry Mahfouz Ali, she told him. Mahfouz Ali was the other man in the village about whom his parents had told her. They had told her to get married to him. And it's about him we read earlier that he was a stammerer. He couldn't speak properly. He is related to us from my mother's family. The way he stammers, you should hear him. So she is telling Najab, Fatima is telling Najab that Mahfouz Ali couldn't speak properly. He stammers a lot. Urchins start mimicking him the moment they set eyes on him. Urchins are street children who roam about in the streets. So when Mahfouz Ali speaks, these urchins, these children who roam about in the streets, they make fun of him by mimicking him. That is, talking or stammering just like him. It's just a step removed from being hounded like a madman and pelted with stones. So these urchins, they make fun of Mahfouz Ali and they might even throw stones. Pelted with stones means they might even throw stones at him as if he were a madman. So Fatima is telling Najab, this is my condition. My parents are trying to get me married off to such a person who stammers and a person who is made fun of by children who roam about in the streets. So she is not at all interested in marrying Mahfouz Ali. Has it never occurred to you to take a ride on Allah Rakha across the run? Who is asking this? Najab. Najab is asking Fatima, are you interested in riding on Allah Rakha, that is riding on my camel and crossing the run, that is the desert? She had kept silent and silence was assent. When Najab asked her this question about whether she wanted to ride on his camel Allah Rakha and cross the desert, she kept silent. She did not say anything. But then he understood that her silence was assent. Assent means was a yes. She meant that she was interested. How did she convey that to Najab? By keeping silent. She did not say anything. It was as simple as that. Just by keeping quiet, she made Najab understand that she was interested in going with him on his camel to cross the desert to come to India. The first lurch of the camel next evening. So the next evening, what happened? And they were off. They means Najab and Fatima. They next evening without anybody's knowledge, they climbed on Al-Araka and they set off for their trip across the desert. He had waited with his camel at the outskirts of the village and she had slipped out after her father had started snoring. So, how did they make their escape? Yes, Najab had gone to where his camel was and he had taken the camel to the outskirts of the village, outer parts of the village. He waited there with his camel and she, that is Fatima, waited for her father to start snoring, means to sleep. When he went to sleep, she slipped out of the house. The moment was too big for them and they did not speak. So, the first lurch of the camel means as the camel got up, it moved, the kind of movement that it made, that is lurching movement. So as they got onto the camel and the camel got up and moved, that moment was too big for them. Why? Fatima was forever leaving her parents, her house, her home, and she was also leaving her country to go to a new country, to a new home. So that moment was too big for them and they did not speak. It was only in passing she thought of the village she was leaving for good. As for quitting one country and entering another, she never gave it a thought. Just as in passing, she thought about her village that she was leaving forever, for good, means forever. And she never at all thought that she is quitting one country, quitting her country, leaving her country and entering into another country. She never even thought about it. Where did one have time for Pakistan and Hindustan when one was eloping with one's love and crossing the desert, which divided both physically and symbolically the two countries? Fatima did not have the time to think about these two countries, Pakistan and Hindustan. Why? She was busy in eloping with one's love, that is, running away with her lover and crossing the desert. This desert which divided the two countries, Pakistan and Hindustan. For her, it meant just a shift in dialect, a smear of Kachi added and a little of Sindhi sandpapered away. In Fatima's village as well as in Najab's village, the same language was being spoken, but with a little difference in the way it was spoken. So, in Fatima's village, Sindhi was being spoken, and in Najab's village, the Kutch district, of Gujarat, Kutch was being spoken. So you can say the way of speaking was slightly different. Otherwise, even the language was the same. And the camel lurched and bumped onwards, and Najab drove him hard. By the time they reached Sarbela, she was exhausted and fell asleep. So evening they started from Fatima's village. They crossed the border and they came up to Sarbela, which is in India. So reaching there, For reaching there, the camel must have moved very fast. And by the time they reached Sarbela, Fatima was asleep. She woke up in the afternoon to find the sky overcast. Later on, that is, night, they must have travelled, then came afternoon, morning and then afternoon. So by afternoon the sky was overcast. Overcast means filled with clouds, overcast with clouds. It turned ominous in the evening, and by evening heavy clouds were seen in the sky, with depth upon depth of dark-edged nimbus gathering at the summons of a storm god. Dark-edged nimbus clouds. These are the black clouds containing the rain. It is from these clouds that rain falls. And as if the storm god was summoning, calling. So now as they are approaching, Najab and Fatima are approaching Najab's village, more and more clouds gather in the sky. Rain clouds gather in the sky. Another night they journeyed facing the wind, which hurled the sand in their faces. They went on travelling one more night. As they neared Kavda, the thunder started rolling and reverberating across the skies. They came after one more night, they came nearer to Kavda. Kavda is Najab's village. And as they came closer to closer to Kavda, thunder, they could hear thunder, reverberating, rolling and reverberating. Reverberating means echoing across the sky. That is, it's almost time for the rains to start. 3 times during the night, Aftab had opened the door, thinking his son had come. That night, Aftab is Najab's father. He couldn't sleep properly. He thought his son had come, and 3 times he went to the door thinking it was his son. But it was only the wind knocking against the door. So, wind was blowing. As the time for rains came nearer, the wind was blowing. So, the movement of the wind ki wajah se, it seemed as if somebody was knocking at the door. And that's why Aftab went to the door to see if his son had come. This time the banging was persistent. Maybe the 3rd time or the 4th time when he went, Aftab could hear somebody really banging on the door, knocking hard on the door. When he unlatched the door, he found Alaraka shying away from a streak of lightning. So when he opened the door, opened the latch of the door, the lock of the door, he saw the camel, Alaraka, first of all. Huge isolated drops of rain were falling, kicking up the dust, and as he looked out, he saw the rain had started. Huge drops of rain. And niche on the ground, dust was there, dry dust, and it was rising in the dust was rising in the air. Aftab steeled himself. When he saw Alaraka, the camel, he understood that his son Najab has come back. He would not allow any relief, any expression of joy to show on his face. Actually, he must have been relieved, he must have been joyful, very happy, but then he didn't show it on his face. Why? He is still angry with Najab, because Najab had gone and to cross the border without his permission, without telling him anything. He must have been angry with Najab's mother also, because she had come to know about it, but he did not know anything about it. Son, have you brought anything? So he is asking Najab, did you bring anything from across the border? He asked, an edge of iron deliberately introduced into his voice. An edge of iron means severity, strictness, as if he was asking very, very seriously. He is asking, have you brought anything from across the border? Yes, replied Najab as he ushered Fatima in. He pushed Fatima forward and said, yes, I have brought something or somebody, and this somebody is Fatima. So we don't know what was Aftab's reaction. Anyway, he must have been very happy to see Fatima. Why? One is that his son had returned. He must have been happy because of that. Then what happened? The rain stormed down and swept away 3 years of drought. As soon as Fatima came to the village, to Najab's house, the rain stormed down. After 3 years of drought, when the people had suffered such a lot, after that, when Fatima came, she came with the rains. So not only Najab's father, Aftab, and mother, other people in the village also must have welcomed her, even though she was from a different country, and even though she had come with Najab, who hadn't taken permission from any of his elders to go and cross the desert. Still, Fatima must have been welcomed by Najab's family as well as the whole village. So I hope you understood this story. This story tells us about love that can cross borders, that can overcome all problems. So it doesn't matter which country you belong to.